and you'd come out of the club and no one wanted to leave. Swap the side back up and just off we went. And car park was just, you know, people dancing on cars and everything. It was mad until, you know, the police turned up.
It was a scene based around clubs. It was a scene based around originally American R&B music, which was the house music coming out of Chicago. Because there was a code, a uniform code. There was a drug, and there was a language. You know, it was a scene that even though all the elements might have been different to what had gone before, the principles were still the same.
What really captured my imagination about the acid house scene was the way that everybody was so free. And, you know, considering that before this we were very much segregated into our own groups, the main attraction for me was the fact that everyone was together. It was all different types of people, different classes, different generations, different races. And for the first time in my life, I'd actually experienced an environment where everybody felt complete unity and completely together, which, in my opinion, was the first time I'd ever experienced something like that. So that immediately captured me, and I was immediately in.
88 for me would have been my formative years at school, so I was finishing up at school. So whereas when you mentioned someone like Wayne Anthony was actually putting raves on, I would have been at home with my finger on the pause button, listening to tunes on the private radio stations, big stations that were probably known in Birmingham at the time. I mean, Powerhouse, I mean, PCRSL wasn't so much, or PCRL wasn't so much rave. Powerhouse would have been rave, Shades of Rhythm, early Prodigy stuff. It was, you know, I was sitting there editing out the adverts, getting a 90-minute tape for playback and listening to it over and over again on the weekdays when you wouldn't get the pirate stations on. But certainly 88 I was too young to be going out, and I was aware of it, so I knew it was going on, but I was just 2 years too young.
What got you interested in making music?
Sex Pistols.
What about them?
I don't know really. When you think about it now, years later, it's hard to figure out because I wasn't musical. I'd never played an instrument, and I just went to see the Sex Pistols and decided to be a musician.
It was born out of a record shop in Manchester. There was me, Darren, who used to be sort of a hip-hop sort of DJ team, and we used to go in a record shop called Eastern Bloc. And one of the guys who owned Eastern Bloc was into sort of making music. There was another guy, Graham, who came in. He was on a recording engineer's course. So after, you know, going in there, you go in there every Saturday and spend most of the day there. You start to meet people, chatting and stuff like that. And then, you know, after a few weeks, we decided to get together and, you know, try and bash out some sort of music, you know, because we all had little bits of equipment, but not enough to create, you know, a full rig to create a full sort of record kind of thing. So we basically just started going in the studio, experimenting, and it sort of followed on from there. You know, it was good that we had the record shop because we had a place where we could play it, you know, play demo tapes in the shop and get an idea off DJs who was in there and stuff like that. And it just sort of ball rolled from there kind of thing.
I went to a music store with my friend. He was a guitarist, right? Okay, sales guy that was selling this thing called a Yamaha QX1. It was a sequencer, right? And he said, hey, with this thing, you could play keyboards like a real keyboard player. You could play stuff like Stevie Wonder, even if you don't know how to play. So, you know, my friend, the guitar player, oh, that's bullshit. You know, who you think? You think we are? Ain't nobody stupid enough to believe that stuff. You gotta take lessons. You gotta do this. And I said, oh man. But I started listening to him, and I believed him, right? So I said, oh man, yeah, I think I want one and stuff, right? So. At the time, I was working at the post office in Chicago, and they gave me a big line of credit, right? So I said, oh, I'm gonna get it, right? So I got it. So then he said, well, hey, you don't wanna have this sequencer and not have a keyboard to play, do you? I said, oh yeah, you're right, right? So I bought the keyboard, right? He said, you don't wanna have this sequencer and this keyboard and not have a drum machine, do you? I said, yeah, you're right, right? So got the drum machine. And he said, you don't want to have this sequencer and this keyboard and drum machine and not have something to hear it all, do you? I said, oh, Yeah, you're right. So I bought a mixer, right? He said, you don't want to have the sequence of the drum machine and this mixer and not have something to play it all out of. So, you know, just you know, a recorder and another keyboard, the TB303. I bought all this stuff, right? And I took it home. And you know, by then, you know, all my friends started coming over and stuff, and they like, oh man, they went at me for like 5 hours, man. And, oh, stupid sucker bought all this stuff and don't even know how to play. Oh man. I mean, I caught the heat too, right? So like, after that, I wrote my first song 2 days later.
I think I actually made my first, if you can't really call it a tune, but my first piece of music must have been about 11 or 12, which was a little miniature guitar and just some tubs and stuff like that. I was probably younger than that, actually. I was probably about 10. Right. Just some tubs with a couple of bits. So we're just making sounds and rhythms and stuff. I used to have an old Bang & Olufsen reel-to-reel. Yeah, or my dad had one at the time. And I used to be able to record each track separately. So I could record on the left channel and then record on the right channel whilst monitoring the left channel, which in them days was like pretty sort of technical, really, I suppose. I'm going back to like, I don't know, or for a 10-year-old anyway, it was pretty technical. I used to be able to record, so I could record something else after, whilst listening to that, then bounce them 2 tracks onto something else, go back onto the single track, then record something else on the next, on the other channel, and sort of make up, sort of, you know, I used to make up 5 or 6 tracks of bits, all going together.
To be honest, I wanted to be a DJ more than anything at all. Didn't think about making records, and it was just a chance meeting with someone who used to be in a breakdance crew that I was knocked around with, you know, in the mid-80s. And we just were tatting around with a little keyboard and a pair of decks. Wasn't serious at all, just having a laugh. Ended up taping all the stuff that we were doing. And then a recording studio opened in Stafford, and we just took the tape there, just on the off chance, and got a deal. It was all a bit surreal, to be honest.
I was 17 in 1988, and I just left home, and I had no responsibilities. I was meant to be at college, but I wasn't really going. And so I totally immersed myself in the scene, and it being that age is something interesting I've realised writing the book, is that most of my friends, most of the people I was hanging out with were sort of between 5 and 10 years older than me, so they had that bit of maturity to understand the scene better, whereas because I was so young, I just thought this was it, and I just thought life was always going to be like this, just parties and dancing and being happy with my friends, and I thought I'd never have to go back. I had quite an oppressive childhood. I went to a very strict school, my parents were very strict, and this was just such a revelation for me that was really my defining experience of becoming an adult. And then obviously it didn't last, and obviously I had to kind of reintegrate back into normal society and find a path for myself. But I kind of, that time always haunted me as being such a pivotal moment in my life, and I knew it was for thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people, and I wanted to explore what it was about that time that made it so special, because I feel like it's not explored at all, or hardly at all, and it was so important to so many people. It changed so many people's lives, and yet it's, you know, last year we had a few 20 years of acid house documentaries, but nothing that really looks at what happened to us then, because it was pretty monumental. If you were there, it was life-changing.
On a few TV shows, what we did, they'd call us a Bob State. Can Bob State come to the stage? A lot of 808 music has always been experiments. Don't like anything what's straight and normal.
We were being influenced by their styles, and then our take on what they were doing was going back over there, and then they were doing their take on what we were doing. So it was bouncing backwards and forwards.
And we got a phone call on the Wednesday afternoon saying we was actually #1.
Oh, slip that! Oh.
And then by the next day we'd gone back to #2 on the midweek, and it was KWS, please don't go, fuckers.
We're basically just like mad scientists going into a studio full of equipment and going, right, let's do this. And if everyone agrees it sounds good, right, okay, we'll have it.
There were several songs before Move Your Body. As a matter of fact, I'd gotten up to like 10, 15 songs playing in the music box before Move Your Body came out.
Gotta have house music all night long. With that house.
About a year after that, I had a song called Move Your Body out, and DJs all over the world were hiring keyboard players to play keyboards like Marshall Jefferson, so so it worked out.
The first one was at Jenkins Lane. I wasn't there for the first one, but I heard it went for nearly 2 days, unstopped, but not that many people were there, so I think they were probably on the same day as the Sunrise or something like that.
Were you that involved with 24-hour party people?
Yeah, we were, yeah. Yeah, it was quite nice to do it. Yeah. It was an interesting, that was a really weird one, because I remember Tony and I went and started the bulldozer that knocked down the Hacienda. And then 3 weeks later, the 24-hour party people, they rebuilt the Hacienda. 3 weeks earlier, they could have used the real Hacienda. It was still there, you know. So that was a great one of those surreal moments of life.
One video which I was very lucky to get was from the Brayfield Stadium in 1992, which was the Mickey Linus Amnesia House wedding, which in fairness, I mean, you could say it was quite a commercial thing. I disagree with that. I just think that Amnesia House at that time were putting the night on at Shelley's on the Saturday. I think that they had a huge following, and I think people wanted to go, and I think that was only echoed by the huge lines of people that queued outside. I've got a 2-hour videotape of that, which shows me things I missed on the night.
I mean, that's changed the dance scene over the last few years with, I suppose, the garage thing sort of blowing up. I suppose that started with drum and bass, which my brother always blames me for that, for doing tunes like on a ragga tip.